I was never the daughter anyone bragged about. That title always belonged to my sister, the golden child. She was the shining star of our family, the one whose mistakes were excused, whose failures were brushed aside, and whose every accomplishment, no matter how small, was celebrated like a national holiday. And me? I was just there, a background character in my own life, a placeholder, tolerated only when necessary, forgotten the rest of the time. Growing up, I learned quickly that fairness didn't exist in my home. If my sister failed a test, it was my fault for distracting her. If she lost a friend, somehow I had influenced it. And if she broke something, it was because I must have pushed her. It didn't matter what the truth was, my mother always believed her. Always. And I tried. God, I tried. I thought if I got better grades, if I stayed out of trouble, if I helped around the house and kept my voice soft, maybe then I'd finally matter. Maybe then she'd look at me the way she looked at my sister. Proud, doting, full of unconditional love. But that moment never came. No matter how hard I worked, I was always the afterthought. There were times I'd stand in the doorway, listening to them laugh together, sharing inside jokes and planning family outings that I was somehow never invited to. I'd ask, "Can I come too?" And the answer was always the same. This is just for us. No explanation, no remorse, just a reminder that I didn't belong. The worst part wasn't the rejection. It was the way they acted like it was normal. Like I was the strange one for wanting to be included. Over time, I learned to keep my feelings buried, to smile through the pain, to nod when they dismissed me, and apologize when I hadn't done anything wrong. I was conditioned to believe that love was something you earned, and I was always falling short. Looking back now, I realize what a heavy weight that kind of silence carries. The silence of not being seen, of not being loved the way every child deserves to be. And as I grew older, that silence hardened me. It taught me not to expect affection, not to seek approval, and definitely not to rely on anyone else to lift me up. Because when your own family sees you as invisible, you either break or you build something stronger from the pieces. And I was done breaking. I spent most of my life trying to be perfect. While my sister coasted through life with a smirk and a string of excuses, I chased perfection, like it was the only path to love. I thought maybe, just maybe, if I were flawless, my mom would finally see me. Not as a mistake, not as a shadow, but as a daughter worth being proud of. So I kept my head down and worked. While my sister stayed out late and brought home trouble, I stayed in and brought home straight A's. I skipped sleep to study for tests, cleaned the house without being asked, and never once raised my voice. I became the kind of child any parent would dream of. Quiet, obedient, dependable. But in my house, none of that mattered. When I brought home a perfect report card, my mom barely looked up from her phone. "That's what's expected," she said. But when my sister passed a single class she'd been failing for months, it was a celebration. Balloons, dinner out, a post on Facebook. "My baby's making a comeback," she wrote. I stood there, smiling politely, my honor roll certificate still tucked in my backpack. Even when I tried to connect with her to share parts of myself, she'd brush me off. If I told her about a goal or a dream, she'd find a way to poke holes in it. "That's not realistic." "Don't get your hopes up." "Your sister tried that once. It didn't end well." I started keeping my achievements to myself. It was easier that way, safer. There were nights I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering what it would take. What did she see in my sister that she refused to see in me? Why was love something I had to earn when it came so freely to her? I blamed myself for a long time. Maybe I wasn't trying hard enough. Maybe I was just unlovable. That thought followed me through every milestone. Graduation, college applications, job offers. No matter what I achieved, I never felt like it was enough. And deep down, I wasn't chasing success for me. I was chasing it for her. For the hope that one day she'd look at me with the same light in her eyes she reserved for my sister. I wanted to hear her say, "I'm proud of you." Just once, just sincerely. But it never came. She never asked how I was doing, never noticed when I was struggling, and the hardest part? I started believing that I didn't deserve to be seen, that maybe invisibility was all I was good for. But something shifted in me, slowly, painfully. I realized that no matter how perfect I tried to be, it wouldn't change her heart. You can't earn love from someone who's chosen not to give it. And the more I bent myself to fit her expectations, the more I lost pieces of who I was. So I stopped trying. Not because I gave up, but because I finally understood. The problem was never me. It was the way she measured worth. And I was done shrinking myself to meet her standards. I still ache for the version of me that waited so long for her to care, but I'm also proud of the version of me that walked away from that hunger and chose to love myself instead. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't slam the door or leave a dramatic note on the kitchen counter. I simply walked out. No goodbyes, no second glances. The house that had held me hostage in silence for years finally stood behind me, growing smaller with every step. And all I had with me was a half-filled backpack and the aching weight of knowing I wasn't going back. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a place to sleep or a friend to call. All I had was an overwhelming need to be free, even if freedom looked like cold sidewalks, empty pockets, and a future built from nothing. I just knew I couldn't stay. I couldn't keep pretending that being invisible was something I could endure forever. The cold air hit my face like a slap, but I didn't flinch. I was numb, beyond fear, beyond grief. I had spent so many years trying to convince myself that one day, maybe, my family would see me. That if I stayed quiet, stayed obedient, stayed useful, I would matter. But they had made it clear. I wasn't wanted. My presence wasn't valued. I was just someone to blame, to use, to overlook. So I left. No destination, no roadmap. Just the rhythm of my feet and the pounding in my chest. I ended up at a cheap motel, handing over crumpled bills with shaking hands. The room smelled of mildew and stale air, but it was mine. The first space I had entered in years that didn't echo with criticism or guilt. I didn't even lie down. I just sat at the tiny desk, watching the flickering lamp and wondered, what now? The next morning, I walked into a coffee shop and ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, a small cup of burnt coffee. I used the cafe's free Wi-Fi to search for tutoring gigs. It was all I knew. I had spent my life helping others pass tests, even while I was failing at being loved. It was slow at first, one student, then another. I undercharged just to survive, living on instant noodles and leftover pastries. I rented a shared room with strangers and rode the bus with worn-out shoes. But every day I woke up without dread. No one yelling, no one blaming me for their unhappiness. That was freedom. Not glamorous, not easy, but real. The world didn't owe me anything and I didn't expect it to. But for the first time, I owed myself something. Peace. And piece by piece, I built a life from scratch. Looking back, I sometimes wonder how I didn't fall apart. But the truth is, I had already been broken long before I walked away. That night wasn't my breaking point. It was the start of my rebuilding. And no, I never got a call, no text, no message from the people who said they loved me. But that silence, it became my strength. Because it proved I had made the right choice. I didn't leave because I was weak. I left because I was finally strong enough to walk away from a place that never saw my worth. The first few months of my new life were a brutal kind of quiet. I had no couch to sit on, no kitchen to cook in, and no family to ask how my day had gone. But for the first time in my life, no one was yelling at me. No one was blaming me for things I hadn't done. No one was calling me a burden. And that silence, that was freedom. I had found a room to rent in a worn-down apartment shared with 3 other people I barely knew. My corner of the room fit only a mattress and a second-hand desk. The window didn't close all the way, and the radiator groaned every night, but it was mine. It was the first space I had ever occupied that wasn't drenched in guilt and expectation. I lived off instant noodles and discount groceries. Sometimes dinner was just a slice of bread and water. I didn't eat well, but I ate in peace. To survive, I offered my skills. Online tutoring, $10 an hour, no minimums, no questions asked. It was exhausting, draining, and inconsistent. But it was honest. Every dollar I earned came from my own effort, not from manipulation, not from begging for approval, not from trying to please people who would never see me as enough. Each morning I woke up without dread. No passive-aggressive sighs outside my door. No cold stares across the dinner table. Just a small beam of morning light slipping through cracked blinds and the distant hum of the city waking up. I wasn't rich, I wasn't comfortable, but I was free. I remember one night particularly clearly. It had rained all day and the ceiling had started leaking again. I had to move my mattress and put down a bowl to catch the drops. I sat on the floor, wet socks and all, holding a cup of lukewarm tea, and I smiled. Not because things were good, they weren't, but because no one could take this moment from me. No one could twist my words, gaslight my intentions, or demand I sacrifice myself to fix their mess. I was finally living my life for me. Sure, the days were long. I took whatever tutoring jobs came my way: math, writing, science, even helping students with college entrance essays. I gave it everything I had. Word of mouth slowly spread. A parent would recommend me to a friend, who would then pass me along to someone else. I started getting emails from students in other cities, my inbox filled with late-night messages. "Do you still have any openings?" "My son failed his last exam. Can you help before finals?" I wasn't making much, but I was making something. And that something meant everything, because every hour I worked was proof that I could build a life from nothing. A life not defined by what I lacked, but by what I chose. And I chose peace. I chose effort over handouts, independence over control. I chose myself. Looking back, those nights spent curled under a thin blanket in a cold room weren't easy, but they were mine. And in a world that had tried so hard to convince me I was nothing, having even that, just the right to exist in peace, was a victory worth everything. It started with a simple idea. What if I could turn my tutoring into something bigger? I had no investors, no mentors, no tech background, just a secondhand laptop, a fragile Wi-Fi connection, and years of silent resilience. But I had one thing my family never gave me: belief in myself. After months of barely scraping by with one-on-one online tutoring gigs, I realized I was trading hours for pennies. Every night, I went to bed exhausted, knowing I'd have to hustle even harder the next day. But buried beneath the fatigue was a quiet fire. I had something people needed, I just had to scale it. I began studying everything I could about online education: how to build digital courses, design a website, run ads. I watched YouTube tutorials during meals, read marketing blogs at midnight, and scribbled ideas on napkins in cafes. Every dime I made tutoring went right back into this dream. Then I filmed it. The SAT prep course I wish I had had. Clear, engaging, honest. I shot videos in my cramped studio apartment, stacking books to hold my phone, using a desk lamp for lighting. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. I poured everything into it. At first, it barely moved. A few sales here and there. I'd refresh the dashboard hoping to see a number, anything. But slowly, word began to spread. Students shared it with friends. Parents left glowing reviews. One order became 5, 5 became 50, and then, almost overnight, it exploded. One morning, I woke up to a flood of emails. My site had crashed from traffic. I rebooted it, shaking with disbelief. The sales kept pouring in. People were signing up across the country. I was no longer just surviving. I was thriving. Within a few months, I was making more than I ever thought possible. I moved into a modern high-rise apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and a doorman who smiled when he saw me. I decorated it with bookshelves, soft rugs, and plants I actually kept alive. For the first time, I felt like I was home. I built a new circle, friends who respected me, colleagues who inspired me. No one here saw me as a burden. No one here asked me to dim my light so someone else could shine brighter. And my family? The same family who told me I had ruined their lives, who had watched me walk away without lifting a finger, they stayed silent. No birthday call? No apology. Nothing. But you know what? That silence didn't hurt anymore. It confirmed everything. They didn't care then, and they didn't deserve to share in my success now. Because I did this, alone, with nothing but scraps of hope and grit stitched together by sheer will. I turned every insult into fuel. Every night I spent alone into focus. Every "you're not good enough" into "just watch me." So here I am, no longer the forgotten daughter, no longer the shadow in the room. I'm the woman who built an empire out of rejection. And when they finally call, and I know they will, it won't be out of love. It'll be because they saw the headlines. the success. And by then, I'll be long gone, not out of anger, but out of peace. Because when you build something from the ashes of your own heartbreak, you don't owe anyone the warmth of your fire. It had been over a year since I walked away from the family that never saw me. In that time, I'd rebuilt myself from scratch. I wasn't rich by Wall Street standards, but I was stable, independent, and finally proud of who I was becoming. My online SAT prep course was thriving. My inbox flooded with students thanking me for helping them get into their dream schools. I had a place of my own now, a quiet apartment that felt like peace. No yelling, no guilt tripping, no walking on eggshells. For 12 months, my phone had been silent. No calls, no texts, not on my birthday, not during the holidays. The people who once said they'd be better off without me had apparently meant it. And then this morning, everything changed. I woke up groggy and reached for my phone, the same way I did every morning. But this time, the screen was different. 6 missed calls from Mom, 8 from Sister, a flood of unread messages. My heart pounded, not out of worry, but out of instinct. Because I knew this wasn't a sudden desire to reconnect. This wasn't about love. This was about money. I opened the latest message from my mother. "Sweetie, we need to talk. Please call me. It's urgent." I didn't respond. The next was from my sister. "I know we haven't talked, but we really need your help. Things are bad. Please don't ignore us." Still, I stayed silent. They hadn't reached out when I was sleeping on a mattress on the floor. They hadn't cared when I skipped meals to save every dollar. They only remembered I existed when I became useful again. And I wasn't going to make it easy for them. I stared at the screen for a long time, letting the weight of those messages sit with me. My thumb hovered over the callback button, but I didn't press it, not yet. You see, the old me might have answered right away, might have sent money without question, might have said, "Of course, anything you need, just to feel a shred of connection." But that girl was gone, replaced by someone who knew her worth, someone who remembered every cruel word, every time they made her feel invisible. Someone who had finally learned that family doesn't mean unconditional access to your life or your bank account. I got up, made myself a coffee, and watched the city come alive outside my window. People were heading to work. Kids were laughing on their way to school. The sun was rising. Life was moving forward. And so was I. I didn't owe them my success. I didn't owe them an explanation. And I sure as hell didn't owe them a rescue. If they wanted something from me now, they'd have to do what I had to do. Earn it. Because I had learned the hard way. When people only come around once you have something to offer, they're not family. They're opportunists in familiar clothing. And I wasn't interested in playing that role anymore. Not now, not ever. I stared at the screen for a long time before finally pressing answer. The voice on the other end trembled. "Sweetie, please, we need to talk." It was my mom, the same woman who once told me they'd be better off without me. The same woman who watched me walk out the front door without a word of protest. And now she was calling me sweetie, like nothing had happened? I didn't say a word, just let her speak. "Your sister's in trouble," she went on. "She failed her exams again. The tuition is overdue. We're behind on rent. We need help." There it was. Not an apology. Not a question about how I was doing. Just a plea. "We need you," she repeated. "Only you can help this family now." Only me. That was rich, coming from the same people who once treated me like a burden. Suddenly I was important. Suddenly they remembered I existed. My silence must have made her nervous because she kept talking. "I know we haven't always treated you right, but things are hard right now. Your dad's hours got cut. We've used up every savings, and your sister, she's really struggling. Please don't turn your back on us." I clenched my jaw. I could feel that old familiar anger stirring in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. "What exactly do you want from me?" She hesitated, then said it outright. "Money." "Of course." She passed the phone to my dad next. His voice was stiff but desperate. "Look, I know we haven't been close, but I'm still your father, and this family, well, we're falling apart. And you've always been the smart one, the one who worked hard. I was proud of you, thus even if I didn't say it." He trailed off like that would make things better. Then, without missing a beat, "But we need your help now. Your sister needs another chance. You're doing well, right? You can afford it. They passed the phone again, this time to my sister. Hey, she said, her voice small. I know I was awful to you. I was jealous. I didn't understand. But please, I messed up. I need to try again. I need that tuition paid. Please don't let me fail like this. Only you can help me. It was almost laughable. They didn't call to reconnect. They called because I was useful now. They all had the same message, like it had been rehearsed. Only you can save this family. I took a breath, steadying my voice. You didn't want me until you needed something, I said. Now I'm the only one who can save you? That's not family. That's convenience. There was silence on the line. I didn't wait for a reply. I'm not your safety net. I'm not your backup plan. You told me I was worthless, a problem, a disappointment, but I made it, on my own, and now you want my help? After all this time? They didn't say anything, maybe because they finally realized the truth. I'm not the same girl you left behind, I said, voice calm but sharp, and I don't owe you anything. Then I hung up. I sat in the quiet afterward, heart racing. For the first time in years, I had the power, and this time I wasn't giving it away. Life lesson from the story. A message for anyone who's ever been undervalued in life: the deepest pain often doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people we once called family. This story reminds us of one powerful truth. Sometimes the ones who say they love you are the same ones who take you for granted until they have something to lose. For years, our main character was overlooked, mistreated, and made to feel like a burden. She gave her all, seeking approval that never came. But when she finally found strength, walked away, and built a life on her own terms, everything changed. And when her family came knocking, not with apologies but with demands, she did what many of us never find the courage to do. She said no. This story is about more than just revenge or success. It's about self-worth. It's about realizing that love without respect is not love at all. It's about drawing boundaries, not out of bitterness but out of healing. To anyone who has ever been the black sheep, the overlooked sibling, or the family scapegoat, you are not weak for walking away. You are not selfish for choosing peace. Sometimes putting yourself first isn't an act of rebellion. It's an act of survival. And to those who carry guilt for saying no to toxic relationships, remember this: forgiveness doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes the best gift you can give yourself is distance. You owe it to yourself to protect your heart, your time, and your peace. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to comment below and share your thoughts. Like the video if you've ever had to walk away from someone who didn't value you. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their worth isn't defined by their past. Subscribe to Reddit Family Files for more powerful stories that reflect real-life challenges and the strength it takes to overcome them. Because sometimes the most powerful story is your own.